Now on Channel 4, how digital television could improve broadcasting services for deaf people in Sign On.
Hello.
Hello and welcome to the last in the present series of Sign On. Today's programme comes from the Council Chamber in Gateshead Civic Centre here on Tyneside, where the Deaf Broadcasting Council is holding its annual general meeting.
Today's AGM is sponsored by the two regional broadcasters in North East England, Tyne Tees Television and BBC North. The DBC is repaying their generosity by putting the two companies on the spot, grilling them with questions about equal access to broadcasting for deaf viewers.
You know, every morning, GMTV News, there is always problems with the subtitles on that programme.
Although the discussion is with representatives of the two regional broadcasters, it comes at a time when the debate on deaf TV is taking on much wider dimensions than ever before. The broadcasting bill, at present going through Parliament, could lead to a multiplicity of channels, including services for deaf people previously undreamed of.
By the year 2000, there could be hundreds of new channels available, including a 24-hour BBC News channel. The technology will be there to provide our own deaf channel, easy access to sign language, interpreting for a wide range of programmes, and 95% subtitling of everything on TV. But will it happen?
More about that later. But first, let's take a look at two examples of how television has already widened our horizons. Until recently, we were relatively cut off from news of deaf people in other countries. Events such as those in the former Yugoslavia would have been a closed book even a few years ago. But now a Swedish deaf TV unit has been to Sarajevo, the capital of Bosnia. They brought back a report about how the pupils of one deaf school are trying to get back to normal and recover from years of warfare. Through the wonders of modern technology and cooperation between three different countries, we can now bring you this insight into the lives and sufferings of deaf people thousands of miles away.
Ja, ajde sad sa. Znaš, hajde, ponovi.
It was very dangerous during the shootings in our city. A lot of children got killed. I was afraid all the time. When it was at its worst, I had to be hidden in the basement. But when it calmed down, it was nice to be able to get out and go to school again. Once a sniper started to shoot into this classroom, everyone had to throw themselves to the floor. We couldn't even leave the room because it was too dangerous. Once again, our teacher told us to go home for a week and to stay inside. I slept, ate, and did nothing else during that whole time. The crossroads behind had a sign that said, "Watch out for snipers." Each day we went to school We had to run from the crossroad to the school, and then the other way round when we were going home. In 1995, the activities in the Deaf Club started again. We got a new place in the Barzeh Meskina Street. We usually meet there to play tennis or football, dance, folk dance, or just to see each other.
War is wrong and unnecessary. It's better to have peace and that everyone is friends. I want to go to sea and meet pretty girls. Make love, not war.
Broadcasting and other branches of telecommunications are said to be creating a global village.
I know Channel 4.
We can now talk to people in Australia more quickly than our grandparents could contact somebody in the next street.
Our sign-on budget.
Another example of how people in different countries are coming closer together is the phenomenon of town twinning, where a town in one country agrees to twin and establish all sorts of links with a town in another country. Two such twin towns are Aberdeen in Scotland and the city of Gomel in the former Soviet Republic of Belarus.
And put forward your views to Channel 4 Direct.
Now, the deaf communities are getting in on the act as well. Last month, a delegation from the Deaf Centre in Gomel paid the latest of several exchange visits to this country. Tessa and I talked to them and to Kath Cameron from Aberdeen when they're on a visit to Newcastle. It was a fitting time to interview them, just 10 years after the nuclear accident in the nearby Ukrainian town of Chernobyl. Fallout from the nuclear disaster has badly affected Gomel and the whole of Belarus. The towns of Aberdeen and Gomel are twinned. How did the deaf communities get together in the same way?
How did we get together? Well, my council in Gomel and Kath's council in Aberdeen joined together as twin towns. So I thought, if hearing people are working on this twinning, why not us deaf people? So I suggested to my council that deaf people should be twinned as well. Later, Kath did the same with her council, and this is how we got together and have this friendship.
I visited Gomel some time ago and stayed there for 3 weeks. I've seen how different it is. They have a huge deaf centre, and it makes ours seem quite tiny. It's about 3 or 4 times as big as ours. They have a swimming pool, a gymnasium, also a 500-seat theatre, and so on. I was amazed. Their lives, their social lives, are way ahead of ours here.
Deaf people in Aberdeen and Gomel have some things the same, but in other ways we're different. Like our signing is different. At first we had problems in communicating, but these were quickly overcome.
It's now 10 years since the nuclear explosion at Chernobyl. Gomel is quite near, just about 90 miles away. There were problems everywhere. There was radioactive dust all over the place, and people were being sent away from the area in droves. There have certainly been a lot of medical problems in the area.
The Chernobyl explosion affected deaf and hearing people just the same. None of us knew about the radioactive fallout. We all just got on with our lives. The authorities kept quiet about it. Nothing was said on television and radio. Now we have medical problems among children and among adults. Deaf people are in the same boat. Children have been affected with coughing, thyroid swellings, brain problems, and so on.
Belarus used to be part of the USSR. What has life been like since it became independent?
Since the end of the Soviet Union, there have been a lot of problems for deaf people. Factories closed down and there was no employment. Deaf people were laid off. There were fewer and fewer jobs for us. There was no market, so wages were either not paid or reduced. It certainly did bring problems for deaf people.
It's important to have outside contacts because we do have problems. But when we talk and share our problems, they get smaller. Our deaf children with medical needs, such as thyroid problems caused by the Chernobyl explosion, could be sent over here. We're trying to do something about that, with Aberdeen as well as Clermont-Ferrand in France and Liège in Belgium. Secondly, we Gomel deaf people. Under the Soviet Union, we were underdeveloped. We'd hardly anything like video cameras or faxes or text phones. So our twin cities are helping and giving us support. Thirdly, we're happier in our hearts now. In the past, Russia was isolated and we had no friendships with other countries at all. Now the barriers have come down and we're forming friendships with other countries, sharing and exchanging information and experience. It's so much better.
Now we have friendship and help. So our problems are being sorted out and put aside. We're getting together and learning a lot from each other.
About what they've wanted in the past. They've said they wanted
Not for the first time we see how easily deaf people from different countries can establish a dialogue. The new age of television could make such discussions a daily occurrence, not just on exchange visits, but by satellite TV link-ups around the world. But will that dream ever become a reality? For more about that, join us after the break.
I'm here from the deaf community. Let's look at sign language within TV.
Welcome back. The Deaf Broadcasting Council has been around since 1980, when it began life as the Deaf Broadcasting Campaign. All the major deaf organisations are affiliated to it, and it's been the spearhead of the continuing lobby for more access and more programmes for deaf and hard of hearing people.
1990 saw one of the greatest achievements so far, when the Broadcasting Act required all ITV companies and Channel 4 to increase their subtitling year on year to a minimum of 50% by 1998. The BBC has agreed to match these figures. One growing criticism of the DBC, however, has been of its failure to achieve any similar requirements for sign language provision. Now the DBC and other deaf campaigners are facing their biggest challenge since 1990. The broadcasting bill at present going through Parliament will lead to the introduction of hundreds of new television channels using digital technology. Here's Tessa with a brief rundown on what the bill means and its progress so far.
The Broadcasting Bill is designed to regulate a new age of television and radio, the digital age. An era of almost infinite choice in what we want to watch and when we want to watch it, all at the touch of a few buttons. So simple, any child can do it. So how does the new digital technology work? We currently have 4 terrestrial channels, each with a teletext service. A 5th terrestrial channel is due to start next year, plus a growing number of satellite channels. The vast increase in potential of the new digital systems lies in the way the program information is processed and transmitted. The current analog system transmits one TV channel over a broad bandwidth of frequencies. This restricts the capacity to provide more channels to the viewer. It's a bit like a giant motorway. At the moment, each channel needs something like a 10-lane motorway to send all its information to the TV receiver. With the new digital channels, each individual lane of the motorway will be able to carry as much information as the previous 10 lanes. So the digital system can deliver more TV channels over the same bandwidth. Information from a number of different sources can be transmitted over a single channel. The viewer can receive all this material through a special decoder on top of the TV set. Just as at the moment, subtitles are transmitted along with the picture and then decoded by pressing teletext 888, but on a much bigger scale. So as well as the original program, the viewer will be able to call up other visual material. For the deaf viewer, this could mean access not just to subtitles, but also to signed interpretation for every program.
Hello and welcome to the programme. First, the pressure of GCSE exams is being blamed tonight for the disappearance of a teenage schoolboy. Hello and welcome to the programme. First, the pressure of GCSE exams is being blamed tonight for the disappearance of a teenage schoolboy.
In Parliament, informed by the DBC and other deaf organisations, some MPs and Lords are fighting to get provision for access inserted into the bill. In March, Lord Ashley moved an amendment in the House of Lords that would force the new digital broadcasters to provide, within 10 years, 95% access via subtitles, 10% access via sign language, and for blind people, 50% access via audio description, a separate digital soundtrack describing what is happening. He summed up the arguments for this move towards equal opportunity.
Amendment 34 for Lord Ashley of Stoke.
Each year, hearing people have available to them, according to the ITC BBC figures, over 200,000 hours of terrestrial, satellite and cable television, and yet 62,000 deaf people, profoundly deaf people, reliant on sign language, have no access to general programs. This means that they're prohibited from watching television. New technology will enable the signing to be done without being visible to the hearing audience, and that will be encouraged by this amendment. And if this amendment, or anything the noble Lord can present to the House, does not become part of this bill, then there is no doubt whatever that deaf and hard of hearing and blind people will be excluded from enjoying digital television, and that really would be a terrible deprivation. We've now got a unique opportunity to include them in this new television era.
The amendment was not passed in the House of Lords, but on April the 30th, at the House of Commons committee stage, Robert Hughes MP succeeded in getting the amendments for 95% subtitling, 10% signing and 50% audio description added to the bill by the narrowest of votes, 13 to 12. The next stage of the bill's progress towards becoming an act will come later this month, when it'll be debated again in the House of Commons before its final third reading. The government may yet move to drop the amendments on the grounds of cost to the new digital broadcasters. But the DBC, the BDA and the RNID have called for a lobby of Parliament on June the 12th to demand that MPs vote to keep the access amendment.
So, what can we do to try and ensure that the subtitling and sign language provisions are not removed from the bill? With me now are David Wilson, Chairman of the DBC, and Simeon Hart, the British Deaf Association's representative on the DBC. What will you be doing to try and make sure that these provisions for access get into the final Broadcasting Act and become law?
The BDA, the DBC and the RNID need to work in close collaboration to make sure sign language is included in the law, especially for the campaign on June the 12th. That's vital.
We want to encourage deaf people to try to contact their MPs. Really hammer it home to them. Get up petitions and try and make sure we have full support.
You have to contact your MPs in your local constituencies where you live. Send them a letter or have a meeting with them. Try to explain to them the importance of including sign language on television and subtitling, which should be 95%. The weak areas are some Conservatives who really tend to ignore you. You need to get a petition going and campaign in those areas. Only that way will it become law. If we don't, we'll fail. So target those weak areas. Deaf people have to be aware of that.
The DBC has been recognised for its achievements in subtitling, but criticised for not doing the same for signing. How can we resolve that and improve sign language services?
Well, at that time, the DBC consisted mainly of oralists. There were very few signers, and the oralists wanted subtitling. But as time progressed, more and more deaf people became involved, and the demands have changed. More deaf people want sign language. English isn't our first language. We have difficulty reading it, and sign language access would help us. So the BDA and the DBC have worked quite closely together to campaign for this. 10% of programmes to be signed to start with, and we hope to increase the percentage later. That's why it's important to work together.
I would like to see the TV companies commit themselves to including more deaf-signed programmes of all varieties. Not just deaf issues, but other programmes, such as gardening, deaf quizzes. The potential is enormous, and the scope is wide. They should commit themselves to including that.
David Wilson, Simeon Hart, thank you very much, and good luck for the lobby of Parliament on June the 12th.
If you'd like to know more about the Deaf Broadcasting Council and its activities, write for information to this address: DBC 70 Blackett's Wood Drive, Chorleywood, Rickmansworth, Hearts, WD3 5QQ. Whatever the long term may hold for Deaf TV, we know what our short-term future is. We have to take a summer break now, but we'll be back in October with another series of Sign On.
We hope you've enjoyed being with us over the past few weeks. If you've any comments on our programmes or suggestions for future programmes, why not write or send us a video letter? The address is Sign On, Tyne Tees Television, City Road, Newcastle upon Tyne, NE1 2AL.
Thank you for watching, but for now, until October, it's goodbye from us.
Goodbye.